My dear friends in Christ, on this fifth Sunday of Lent, I would like to reflect on the theme delayed but not denied. Delayed but not denied. Anyone who has experienced delays in life, anyone who has had to wait on the Lord for a long time, can understand the anxiety, confusion, and distress of Martha and Mary when Jesus delayed in coming to their aid, even after he was told that Lazarus was gravely ill. This was not an ordinary family to Jesus. The household of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus enjoyed a close and special relationship with Jesus. The Gospel of John gives us rich and touching details about this relationship that Jesus had with this family. John tells us unequivocally, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Mary is identified as the one who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair. Lazarus is not spoken of as a stranger, but as a friend of Jesus. Even Jesus himself says to his disciples, our friend Lazarus is resting, meaning he's dead. Even the crowd, after seeing Jesus weep so deeply for Lazarus, will later say, see how he loved him, how Jesus loved Lazarus. Everything in the text emphasizes intimacy, friendship, love, and strong relationship. And yet, Jesus delayed. I want that to sink deeply. They were devoted to him. They took care of him. They were close to him. Think of somebody who prays, who is close to God, who fulfills their spiritual and religious obligation. And then when they call upon the Lord, he delays. That gives you an idea. He delayed. After receiving the message by Martha, which says, Lord, the one you love is ill, Jesus did not go immediately. Instead, the gospel says after he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. He took his time. He did not rush to Bethany. He delayed while the family mourned, while the family waited and suffered in the pain of his apparent absence. Why? Why delay when the need is urgent? Why delay when the one in distress is someone you love? Why delay when those calling on you are not strangers but your friends? Why delay when your presence could have prevented the pain? These are not only Martha and Mary's questions. These are our questions too. The questions of all those who are waiting upon the Lord. These are the questions of everyone who has prayed and waited. The questions of those who have cried out for healing and still carry the wound and pain in their body. The questions of those who have waited for restoration, for marriage, for children, for work, for peace, for justice, for deliverance. And heaven seems silent. This feeling of delay also echoes the experience of the Israelites in the first reading of today, Ezekiel 37. The people were in exile, broken, and buried under the pain of suffering, feeling abandoned and forsaken and forgotten. If you remember Psalm 137, how they fell by the rivers of Babylon, how they wept, how they hung up their instruments of praise. Their hope had dried up, their future seemed sealed, and yet in that condition God speaks, I'm going to open your graves and bring you up from your graves, O my people. He recognized and called them his people. The God of Israel is the God who enters graves, opens what is closed, and restores what appears lost. That's the message of today. He opens graves. Even Jesus himself entered into the mystery of waiting and apparent abandonment. On the cross he cried, my God, why have you forsaken me? Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. So when we speak of delay, we are in good company. We're speaking of something that is not foreign to the life of faith. Delay is one of the painful places where faith is tested, where questions and doubts arise, but also where faith is purified and deepened. So again, the question remains, why did Jesus delay? How do we understand the ways of God in such moments? How do we justify the ways of God in moments of delay? How do we reassure those who are in seasons of waiting that God has not abandoned them? This is the question today, dear friends. The answer is delay is not denial, but preparation for the greater glory and manifestation of God's power. The delay you experience is not a sign of divine indifference or lack of compassion. It's rather a preparation for greater revelation of the glory of God. Jesus himself says, upon hearing of Lazarus' illness, he says, this illness will not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Does this not recall, the man born blind we discussed last week Sunday? Not his sin, not his parents' sin, but God allowed it so that his glory will be revealed and manifested. This is very important. Now, in the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus generally, often performs miracles in response to faith, as if to say he requires faith to perform miracles. We see statements like, your faith has made you well. Let it be done to you according to your faith. I've never seen anyone with this kind of faith in Israel. He praises faith before or during the miracle. In the Gospel of John, it's a bit different. First of all, miracles are called signs. Signs and like wonders that God performs to show people who he is. These signs do not merely respond to faith, as we see in the Synoptic Gospel. They are often given to awaken faith, to elicit faith, to deepen faith, and to reveal who Jesus truly is. So John's Gospel is very clear about his purpose, and that's why it says in John 20:31, this book is written basically that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through believing you may have life in his name. So the whole book is written to elicit faith, and through that faith you have clarity and growth in relationship with God. So Jesus delays because he's about to do something greater than what Martha and Mary expected. They were hoping for healing. Jesus was preparing for resurrection. They waited upon him, to prevent death, but he intended to show that he's the Lord even of death. You see, he allowed death to occur to show that he's the Lord of life and the Lord of death. He allowed time for mourners to gather. He allowed the sorrow to deepen. Everybody came together. It was like a public show. Everybody came to the venue. He allowed the reality of death to become undeniable, lest they say, oh, he was sleeping, he had not yet died. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. In fact, Martha said, there is already stench because he had been dead for 4 days. This is a point of no return. This is a moment when all hope is lost. This is a moment when there is nothing more to do. And that's where Jesus chooses to act. He stands there and prays to the Father and asks the Father, to raise Lazarus so that they may believe that you sent me. Then he cried out, Lazarus, come out. He's calling Lazarus by name, and this is important. He's calling you by name as well, and releasing you, and delivering you, and setting you free. Come out. It's okay. It's over. This delay is not denial. You have to put your name there. The dead man comes out. John tells us that many who witnessed the sign believed in Jesus. So the delay was not pointless. It served revelation. It served to elicit faith. It served the glory of God. Sometimes God delays, not because he has refused us, but because he intends to do something greater, something deeper, something fuller, something more transformative than what we initially asked for. The second reason is to show his sovereignty and authority as Lord and God. That's it. The resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. Jesus does not say merely, I can bring resurrection. No, he says, I am the resurrection. I am the life. So whatever seemed dead, whatever seemed to have collapsed, he said, I'm the one that will restore. So resurrection is not just something he gives, it is who he is. My dear friends, there are moments in life when delay strips us of the illusion that we're in control. It empties us of self-reliance. It takes us to the edge of our own powerlessness. And there, painfully so, there, but truthfully so, is where we discover that God is sovereign. And that's what the responsorial psalm speaks about, this whole idea of out of the depths we cry, and God shows that he's Lord of life and death. My dear friends, we shall call upon the Lord all the time and say, I waited for the Lord. I waited, and he showed up, and he responded. This is assurance of faith. And sometimes the delay is actually an anticipation of resurrection of Jesus and also us. So this delay can also function. In fact, I think because we're going to the final week and therefore the Holy Week, it's pointing to the resurrection. It can speak the death and resurrection of Jesus, which we're about to enter more deeply in the Holy Week. So the church places this gospel to remind us that just as Jesus will rise, we will also rise. And that's why St. Paul in today's second reading says, if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, that spirit who raised Jesus from the dead will give life to your own mortal bodies as well. Romans 8:11. This is an assurance. So my dear friends, let's never give up. The God of Ezekiel who opens grave, the Christ who caused Lazarus out, the Spirit who raised Jesus from the dead, this same God is at work in the lives of his people. So what is the message for us today? First, you're not alone in your delay. You're not alone. If you're experiencing delay, if you're in the season of waiting, if you feel forgotten, buried, or abandoned, you're not alone. Lazarus was not a random stranger in passing. John makes it clear. He gives us his name, his village, his sisters, and the details of their family life to let us know that Jesus knows your name, your village, your family, and details of your story, and he will show up. He will show up for you. And this is the message today. Lazarus was loved, and you are loved. You are in the company of Martha, you are in the company of Mary, you are in the company of Israel in exile, you are even in the company of Christ crucified, and you'll be raised. Second, delay is not his denial. So when there is delay, it does not mean that God has denied you. Take note of that. In real life, delays are frustrating, no doubt. When things don't move as you expect, when answers don't come as you expect, when it feels like nothing is changing in your life, it can be difficult. But remember, delay does not have the last word. Yes, even if God's love is questioned at that time, don't give up. Never ever give up. And finally, my dear friends, the message today is let's learn from the prayer and courage of Martha. Very simple prayer. The one you love is ill. What a prayer. No long explanation, no attempt to control God, no kind of manipulation, just trust, relationship, and truth. She places the pain before the Lord and leaves it there. And when Jesus arrived, Martha says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. This is also prayer, again, from a place of faith. And indeed, Jesus showed his power and indeed performed the great sign. My dear friends, delay is not denial. Keep this in mind this week. Keep this in mind in your situation. And may God bless you and bless your family and lead us all to a fruitful, spirit-filled Holy Week. Amen.